Welcome back, guys. Picking up where we left off, I had just got back from the Moonshiners Fly-In out in East Tennessee. Sandie Gaskins, aka Sandie the Squirrel, happened to be driving through Kansas on her way to Salt Lake City. I told her I had some pretty epic places we could fly if she wanted to break up her drive. Next thing I know, she's pulling up to my home LZ, ready to fly. We checked out some wind turbines before hitting up the best kept secret in Kansas. A little spot nestled deep in the Flint Hills, with 100 miles of shoreline to explore, so you could spend weeks here and really never get bored. The beauty of ripping up and down this lake is that the 200 to 300 foot bluffs create almost a wind shadow effect that leaves the air smooth and the water glassy, absolutely perfect for an endless foot drag kind of night. And where to begin with the wildlife out here? There's an abundance of birds with no telling what you might discover in or on these grassy hills. I've yet to catch a sunset out here that didn't leave me speechless, and I've yet to experience a long cross-country flight here that didn't leave me without dry socks. After covering some serious ground out here, Sandie and I headed back to the LZ with only one more box to check off the list: flying under the mile-long bridge, which is the best way to end a legendary flight in the most legendary location. The following morning, we went flying with a squadron of pelicans while I waited for my Red Bull to kick in. Somehow, the mornings here are even more calm and peaceful than a Nilwind night flight. This means being able to carve up the deep canals that stretch out across the wetlands, like veins in the earth. These canals are the best way to test your precision, and with a little imagination, it's almost like you're flying down your very own paramotor racetrack, created by nature. It was a cloudy one, but the calmness in the air definitely made up for the lack of sunshine, and naturally, we headed for the bridge once again. There are just some flights where you feel so in tune with your gear that anything feels possible. And probably one of my favorite tricks to do here is cruise along the highway, pop the brakes, and swoop between the pillars beneath the bridge. And if everything is timed just right, you can fall right into another smooth-looking bridge slalom. I think at this point, I had Sandie convinced that Kansas might just be the coolest place on earth to fly a paramotor. And I might be a little biased, but at the very least, it's definitely underrated and overflowing with hidden gems that are just waiting to be discovered. After hitting some epic one-wheel trails, we headed into Manhattan, Kansas, aka the Little Apple. If you've never been, it has such a unique variety of things to do, which was the best way to kill some time before linking up with Mitch G for a midday rip around Milford Lake. Mitch is probably the closest local pilot to me, and for some reason we waited way too long to finally meet up.
Legit a stormtrooper.
I had a blast buzzing boats, and truly appreciated Mitch hooking me up with the pull starter parts that I needed. Mitch, if you're watching, let's go flying again soon.
Good stuff, good stuff.
So Sandie had one more night to kill in Kansas before continuing west. We were shooting for the clouds on this one, and had absolutely no idea how insane the next 24 hours were about to become. We said our farewells, and the next thing I knew, I was receiving one of the most unexpected texts of my life. So this is Sandie's story to tell, so I'm not going to go too in-depth here, but long story short, car trouble had her pulling off in a Walmart parking lot where she'd sleep in her camper for the night. A methed-out criminal broke into her truck and took it on a high-speed chase down the interstate, with Sandie and her dog Millie clinging on for dear life in the camper. Once things settled down a bit, I happened to know a local pilot in her area that was more than happy to fly her back to my place until her truck was fixed. I think it's safe to say we found the right airport to fly Sandie the Squirrel into. I'm incredibly grateful for Cody, the pilot, and everyone in the paramotor community that was able to come together and support Sandie during this unfortunate situation. I didn't expect to see Sandie and Millie again quite this soon, but it felt good being able to offer her a safe place to stay in the meantime. We had no idea how long it would take to get her truck and trailer fixed, but the month that it did take was filled with all kinds of fun adventures to pass the time. We left the airport, and the first thing we did was head for this neat old railroad trail, where Sandie was still getting mobbed with phone calls from the paramotor world asking if she was okay. I know a lot of people watching this video probably wanted to do more for Sandie in this moment, but what I can tell you firsthand is that Sandie was beyond thankful for every single phone call, donation, and each and every kind gesture truly made this traumatic event a little bit more bearable. I was still soaking up those foggy morning flights, but unfortunately Sandie's motor was damaged in the high-speed chase. I'd like to think Sandie felt right at home though, being able to help teach some of the locals how to kite a glider, while I was off having fun. Sandie was adapting to life in the Midwest nicely, and then we somehow managed to pull off the craziest challenge yet. I'd been trying to get my girlfriend Sam to go up for a tandem flight for years. She absolutely does not do heights of any kind, but with just the right amount of peer pressure, here she was, strapped to a giant fan, catapulting us both into a sweet summer sky that neither of us would soon forget. Huge shout out to Sam for overcoming that fear and making date night a whole lot more interesting.
I think I'm tripping.
There wasn't a twitch in the air, and we enjoyed an incredible sunset. We buzzed down some railroad tracks, and I remember thinking it felt like we were just floating rather than flying. A graceful touchdown back to Earth, and I was just beyond proud of Sam in this moment. I know how huge this was for her, and it was awesome getting to share this crazy thing that I'm passionate about with someone special.
That was awesome! I'm so proud of you, man.
What'd you think? Dude, you did it! That's insane!
Naturally, we hit up Sonic to debrief the flight and end a pretty unforgettable night.
That was pretty awesome!
She loved every second of it.
No way!
I think I'm tripping.
The next morning, I was asked to film a wedding with my drone, and randomly got held up by a marching band that afternoon while searching for funnel cakes to bring back for Sam and Sandie.
Sky's door handle got hit.
Sandie helped us bartend the wedding reception later that night before flying back to Florida for a few days. I spent some quality time with Millie while plotting yet another spontaneous road trip. The Aurora PPG fly-in was going on in Pennsylvania, and somehow we let Sandie talk us into loading 3 adults, 1 dog, a paramotor, and all of our luggage into a small SUV to start the first 17-hour leg of a 40-hour road trip.
Wherever you are, I'm driving towards you. I'm driving towards you.
We drove the entire thing in one shot, and in the blink of an eye, I was back in the sky, surrounded by some of the best people.
For you. I don't need
Surprise, surprise, I linked up with Rob Candela once again, and got a tour of his Jersey Shore stomping grounds before tragedy struck. Rob woke me up the next morning to tell me about his little mishap that unfortunately had him leaving the fly-in way earlier than expected. It definitely felt wrong flying Rob's home LZ without him, and shortly after, a thick layer of fog set in to keep everyone else on the ground that morning too. Or almost everyone. What my drone captured was this lone paramotor, soaring over a deep sea of fog. It looked terrifyingly beautiful even from the ground. Once the fog cleared, I had to ask the man about his flight. He was from Poland, and his name was Lucas too. He described the flight as being so beautiful that he was nearly in tears. Then he asked me for these clips, and I jokingly told him he would owe me a beer in exchange for the videos. And sure enough, a few hours later, he showed up with a whole 12-pack, which we split later that evening over a campfire and paramotor stories.
driving towards you. A million.
More fog finally cleared up, and Jillian made a soggy no-wind launch look effortless. I was excited to get up in the air too, and barrel roll through the patches of clouds that the fog left behind. Diving into a pillow of clouds will forever be one of my favorite things to do. It can make the most macho of men feel like a little kid once again. It's always a good day when the Charlie Soap Wing floats your way. I'd just met James Sutherland a few weeks prior at Moonshiners, and a wingtip bump was in order. We've crossed paths a lot over the last year, and it's always fun getting to soak in the same sunsets. The clouds soon dissipated, and we flew in formation back to the LZ. There was something extra special about the mornings here, and it made for the best possible way to start each day.
Desert stars, oh, are shining for you.
Tubing down the Susquehanna River was almost necessary to escape the heat during the day, before the big sky party that night, which wouldn't be complete without balloons, and my friend Sarah wasn't wasting any time getting off the ground to go fly with them. I had the opportunity to demo a little 16-meter freeride 2 for the first time on this flight, and it did not disappoint. Balloons are always fun to fly around, so I had to fly by and say hello to the crew. Next, I spotted a wild David Garber soaring up on the ridge. Once upon a time, David showed up at the LZ for my very first flight ever, and helped hype me up and became my first wingman. Once I reached the top of the ridge, it was pretty obvious what needed to be done. Shredding down the side of this mountain was the best way to feel out the freeride, and when I turned around, I noticed several other gliders hot on my tracks doing the exact same sled run. Josh McGee swooped in out of nowhere for a wingtip bump, and we both shredded down towards the cornfields to have some fun. The cornfields were a nice little taste of back home. There's something pretty mesmerizing about staring down the endless corn rows, and I couldn't resist the urge to carve down and tickle the tassels. My new buddy Mike came over for a formal paramotor handshake, and I headed back towards the LZ to grab my Piper to finish off the evening. Another Nilwyn night, and I was ready to rip on a wing that I knew inside and out, while watching yet another gorgeous sunset over Jersey Shore. After skimming down the mountain a few more times, I headed back to the LZ to end another incredible night. We just had one more day at the Aurora fly-in, and as usual, it was about to be the best flight yet. The next day, we enjoyed Arby's with a view, and we each clipped in for our last flight at Jersey Shore. There always seems to be some extra magic in the air on those final flights. Perhaps it's the bittersweet ending to something truly special. But whatever was in the air, we all managed to latch onto it, and it seemed like everyone had the same objective, to have as much fun as humanly possible. Mike and I kind of just started a big game of follow the leader, foot dragging everything like it was going out of style. We buzzed past kayakers and periodically climbed back up above the mountains just to carve right back down to the bottom. I can say with certainty, something about this flight obliterated the scale on the fun meter, and it's hard to really sum up with words. I made so many amazing memories, between wingtip bumping James and Jill to endlessly foot dragging the river with Mike. It'd been a week of learning, making mistakes, and learning to laugh at them. I was learning to put together new combo moves and build energy to power up for those bigger maneuvers. Almost like a video game, except flying is 1,000 times cooler than any game my childhood could have ever prepared me for. Nights like this are what it's all about. Moments where it was simply flying and nothing else mattered. The moments where your only objective is to flap your arms like a bird, kick your feet, and act goofy just to make the pilot next to you laugh or smile, or join in on what I can only describe as complete paramotor freedom. These are the moments, and they are the why to my fly. Thanks for watching, guys.